Okay, what if I told you the history books got it wrong? That the moon landing wasn't the final frontier for the Apollo generation? We're diving into a story that claims humanity secretly reached Mars decades ago. This is the wild, tangled story of Project Redsun. So let's just get right to it. The core of this whole thing is a mind-blowing claim that just 4 years after we first walked on the moon, a top-secret mission put boots on Martian soil. I know it sounds completely out there, but the theory itself is built on a very specific and kind of suspicious moment in history. To really get it, you have to look at the official timeline of the space race. I mean, it was this insane sprint, right? The Soviets launched Sputnik in '57, the US creates NASA a year later, we land on the moon in '69. We were on a roll. But then, in 1973, at the absolute height of its power and with 3 missions still on the books, NASA just cancels the Apollo program. The official reason? Budget cuts. But for some people, that sudden stop, that vacuum, was just a little too convenient. It felt like the perfect cover for a massive secret.
And that secret, according to the theory, has a name: Project Redsun. The idea is that while we were all watching those grainy images from the moon, the real goal was already shifting. The next target was the red planet.
So, what was Project Redsun, supposedly? Well, here's the twist. The theory claims it was the ultimate Cold War paradox. The US and the Soviet Union, mortal enemies in public, were secretly working together on the biggest mission in human history. And the goal wasn't just planting a flag. It was about survival. It was a plan to build an off-world colony, a kind of lifeboat for humanity if things went south here on Earth.
And look, this isn't some vague conspiracy theory. It's incredibly detailed. The story goes that it was inspired by a real, declassified plan called Project Horizon, which was a US military proposal for a moon base. They have a specific launch date, a hidden launch site in the Amazon jungle to keep it off the radar, a name for the ship, the ISV Columbus, and even the crew, 2 Americans and 1 Soviet cosmonaut. It's all these little details that make the story so compelling.
Of course, a secret this huge couldn't stay buried forever. Over the years, a few people have come forward claiming they had inside knowledge, and they started creating these little cracks in the official story of our space history.
One of the wildest accounts comes from a woman we only know as Jackie. She called into a radio show once and claimed that back in '79 when she was working at NASA, she was watching a live video feed from the Viking lander on Mars. And she swears she saw 2 people in spacesuits just walking towards it. And then bam, the feed was cut. Unsurprisingly, NASA says, nope, never happened.
And Jackie isn't the only one. There was a guy named William Rutledge who claimed he actually flew on secret Apollo missions to Mars. NASA's response? We have no record of this guy ever being an astronaut. Then there's Gary McKinnon, a hacker who broke into US military computers. He said he found a spreadsheet listing non-terrestrial officers. And the US government's reaction to that? They tried to get him extradited and lock him up for 70 years. Yep, 70.
But the piece of evidence that really threw gasoline on the fire wasn't what someone said, it was what someone showed. It came in the form of what looked like a leaked, top-secret video of the mission itself.
Video just appeared online one day. It was stamped internal use only, dated 1973, and it seemed to show everything. You see Earth getting smaller and smaller, you see shots of the crew inside the ship on their 158-day journey, and then you see the landing on this dusty red world. For people who believe the theory, this was it. This was the smoking gun. But you know what they say. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So investigators, both amateur and professional, started tearing that footage apart, basically frame by frame.
This was the billion-dollar question, right? Were we all looking at a buried piece of human history, or were we looking at a really, really good fake?
Well, it turns out faking a mission to Mars is actually surprisingly simple. You don't need a Hollywood studio. You just need the internet. You go to the NASA archives, which are public, grab some real space footage, throw a red filter over it, make the quality a little worse to hide any mistakes, and then you just slap on some official-looking titles. That's exactly what happened. When people started checking, the whole Redsun video fell apart. That beautiful shot of Earth from space, pulled from Apollo 8. The crew inside the ship, that's just footage from Apollo 17 and 14 spliced together. The approach to Mars, that's not even a video, it's a still picture from a 1999 probe. And the landing, this is the best part, The landing was taken straight from a 1977 British TV mockumentary called Alternative 3, which was also about a secret mission to Mars.
And just to really put a nail in the coffin, a second video popped up later claiming to be from a newer mission. It was debunked almost instantly. People recognized footage from the International Space Station and European missions just with an orange filter over it.
So, okay, the videos are fake. Case closed, right? Well, maybe not. Because debunking the footage doesn't quite answer everything, and there are still some really uncomfortable questions that hang around.
Let's circle back to Gary McKinnon, the hacker. 70. That is how many years U.S. prosecutors wanted to put him in prison for. And what was his crime? Accessing military computers that, by his own account, were so unsecure they didn't even have passwords. That punishment just seems wildly out of proportion.
Which brings us to the big question. If all the evidence is fake, and McKinnon was just some guy who stumbled into nothing important, why on earth would the government spend a decade in an international legal battle to lock him away for the rest of his life? Were they just trying to make an example out of him? Or were they trying to silence him?
So, when you add it all up, this is kind of where we land. Most of the Project Redsun theory can be pretty easily explained. The videos, total fakes. The plot, lifted from an old TV movie. The whistleblowers, no credible proof. But there's still that 10%. That little slice of the story made up of things like the government's crazy overreaction to Gary McKinnon. And that part remains a stubborn, nagging mystery.
And that really brings us right up to today. We're in a new space race now, but this one is driven by billionaires. And it really makes you wonder, as they're planning their grand missions to Mars, are they actually the pioneers they claim to be? Or could they be, maybe without even knowing it, providing the perfect public distraction for a secret program that's been there all along?